Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today's topic is going to be discussing the narcissistic relapse whenever you basically crash after you've escaped. This comes from a coaching call that I had a couple of days ago where this was the topic that the person was struggling with. But before I jump into that, I'm Duane, and if you want to get your life back, break the cycles of abuse, repair the relationships with yourself and your kids if you have any, start right now by hitting the subscribe button, clicking the bell notification so you don't miss a thing. Okay, so this topic is really tough for people to deal with. And partly what happens is you go through your initial experience. You break free, you're doing that, the fight, you have people messing with you, you have the triangulation, the smear campaign, all those things that are happening. And you're just struggling to survive. You're just fight or flight mode constantly. You don't have time to think. You're just trying to get through it, and you're just trying to get out. Now, the really interesting part, and I say interesting as in like the really terrible part, there are lots of terrible parts on this, is that when you finally get free, you finally break away, you finally get to the point where you feel like, oh, my God, I've finally gotten away. It is incredibly common for you to have a relapse and get triggered and have emotional flashbacks and feel like you're spiraling out of control again. And this can feel completely devastating. It can make you feel like all the progress that you have made up to this point was a joke. It wasn't real. It was fake. That the pain that you're having in this relapse is really what you're going to be stuck with forever. Now, this tends to happen when you get to a point to where you basically feel safe, or you finally feel like you're not in this running gun battle like I talk about sometimes, and that you can take a breath and start to process it. And what happens is your mind goes, okay, I'm secure now. Things are going okay. So I can now process all of these pent up emotions that I haven't been able to deal with. The first thing on this is you really have to look at the details of what's happening. And what I mean by this is you have to keep it in context of your entire process. For instance, when I was talking to this person, one of the questions that I asked them, because they made a comment like, well, I have these good days, but then I have these bad days. And I said, okay, well, let me ask you this. When this started, did you have a good day? Or was it just this one nightmare into the other? And maybe if you were lucky, you had a moment that might have been good. Like maybe you'd have a glimpse of a couple of minutes where it's like, oh, I feel okay. And then your world would come crashing down. And I think for most of us, that's exactly how this starts out. It starts out as a completely catastrophic, you feel like there's no escaping what's happened. And the crazy part is as we start to get better and we start to have these better days and we start to kind of come out of it, when we have these backslides, the backslide or the relapse feels like it's overwhelming. And to be honest, at the time it is. When I had them, they completely crushed me. They made me feel, like I said before, like this was the mode I was going to be in forever. And I think that's what happens is that I think every one of us who goes through this, you get to the point where you get knocked back down and you just feel devastated because it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to break free from this. I'm never going to be able to get this out of my life. I'm never going to be able to get this in my head. It's in my noggin and I can't get it out. That's not true. And that's why it's really important to look at it at the details of this and to really say, or really look at it and say, wait a minute, no, I have had some better times. Today, even though today is bad, overall, the measurement of how things are right now is tremendously better than it was 6 months ago or a year ago or whatever it was. And it's really important to remind yourself of that, to look at that and understand the context of everything. Healing from this is not easy. The other thing that typically happens is this all is typically stems from other traumas. We get in the process of dealing with the trauma with our ex, and we think that's the source of it. But it's really not. It's like the manifestation of a lifetime of issues that culminate in this relationship and the destruction of it. And then as you start peeling back the layers and you start looking at it, you tend to realize, holy crap, my family was a huge source of this, primed me for this from the beginning. And if you're in that category, and I get some people aren't. Some people did have really good families. They were just duped by a narcissistic, toxic person that picked them, sold them a bill of goods, told them everything they wanted to hear. Typically in that situation, what happens is that quickly the person realizes something's wrong and this isn't the way relationships are supposed to be, and they get out. Sometimes in that also means you've already had a kid, and that complicates things. But that's kind of the trend that happens. If you're in this for a longer period of time or multiple years, more than likely you've been primed for this. More than likely you've been conditioned that is normal. So when your relationship starts to pivot into that toxic way, in the back of your mind, you're like, oh God, this is exactly how it's supposed to be. I don't like it. I thought it was going to be different, but everyone has their issues, and you start making excuses for it. And then, like I said, as you start peeling it back, you start recognizing that maybe your family was a source of it. And then what happens is you look at it and everyone you've been surrounded around is narcissistic and toxic and emotionally abusive to you. All your friends, all your coworkers, it seems like the entire world is out to get you. Again, you have to put that into context too, because you've had a lifetime of acclimating to these type of people, to these situations. So it's only natural that you would draw these people to you. And all of this causes these relapses just to hit you like a ton of bricks. And you can have an emotional flashback set off by all kinds of different things. It could be an interaction with somebody at work where they say something. It could be an interaction with somebody where they treat you with respect and they treat you with love, and you haven't experienced before, and it blows your mind because it doesn't make sense. And that can cause you to have an emotional flashback and have this narcissistic relapse. Again, all of this is part of that healing process and is normal. You have to look at this like you're detoxifying your body from a toxin. And the toxin is narcissistic abuse. It's being belittled, being devalued, being treated with no respect or no value, having your emotions discarded, having your feelings invalidated. All of these things is going to take a lot of time to back out of, to get your life back. So these relapses are incredibly normal. Doesn't mean they're any fun, because they are not. They can be incredibly devastating. I remember when I was going through mine and I didn't really understand narcissistic abuse at the time. I could not understand, why in the world couldn't I feel better? Why was I always falling down this dark pit of hell, circling the toilet bowl, doing this catastrophic thinking and not able to get anywhere? And typically when that happened for me, and I'm sure this is, if you're going through this or if you've experienced this, and share your story in the comments below. I'd love to know if we're on track with this, is you feel like you're stuck with it, that you can never break free from it, that it's going to be your dark passenger forever. That would be a Dexter reference if you're not familiar. But it's one of those things where you get into this mode and you feel like there's just no escaping it. I'm here to tell you, you will escape this. This is not going to follow you forever. Well, you're always going to be This is an experience that's going to be a part of your life forever, but it's not going to dominate your life forever. It's not going to dominate your emotions. You have to look at the details on your progress, the progression that you're making. When you are having good days, look at it before, like I said. Compare that to where you were before. More than likely, you're going to see a difference. That's why in my earlier videos, I used to talk a lot about micro improvements. That you have these little bitty progress, when either in this category or even if you have children with your kids. But you have to really have a critical eye and look at those, because it is so easy to just discount them, to think that it's not that big, that you have this big ball of muck and this little bitty thing doesn't mean anything. This little bitty thing means a lot, and it builds on itself over time, and it gets better and better and better and better. We can't rush the healing on this. You have to go through the process. And it's important for me to say that, because most of the time, the people in your life who are good people, you found good people, you're surrounding yourself with good, genuine people who care about you, legitimately care about you, who love you, who only want the best for you, but they have no concept of narcissistic abuse. They're going to give you advice like, you need to move on. Why don't you just go on a date? Do something, go on a date so you can get him out of your mind, get her out of your mind. They don't understand. They're trying to be helpful. Don't rush this stuff. Specifically, don't go on dates. If you're still in the midst of all this and you're not, if you're not having 95% of your days are great days, and then you have a relapse that's an hour or maybe 2, then you're at the point where you can start dating. But don't even rush that. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the other person you're dealing with. And if you happen to team up or attract somebody who's maybe, healing but not quite at the same level, then you're going to be dealing with each other's trauma, and it's going to be causing emotional flashbacks for both of you. Spend the time to work on yourself. Spend the time to get your life back on track. It is super important to do that. The other thing I would really encourage you to do is write down the improvements that you've made. Write down the positives that are in your life, and put it on a card, 3x5 card, laminate the sucker, or make it to where you can put more in it. Keep it in your pocket, keep it next to your bedside, and when you're having these when you're having these relapses, which I guess is also emotional flashbacks, refer to it to remind you the progress that you have made. Because it is so easy when these things start sliding, when you start having a backslide, that you just erase all the progress that you've made. You ignore it, you don't even think about it, and all you focus on is the pain that you're feeling in that particular moment, and that can make you feel completely lost. Like I mentioned before, that's exactly what happened to me, and it was really tough to see it. And at the time I was going through it, I didn't have anybody who could tell me, yes, you will get through this. This is what it is. It's narcissistic abuse that you've dealt with over a lifetime, and you're going to have to heal from it and work through the process to get your life back. I didn't have that. I was just thinking, oh my God, I'm going to feel like this forever. Yeah, I have a couple of good days every once in a while, but then the reality comes crashing back in. No, it's not the reality. It's just the old programming and all the crap that's tied to it that you have to detoxify yourself from. So if you want help working on that, you can schedule some time to work with me over at dadsurvivingdivorce.com/coaching. We can set up a session to work on your specific issues. The thing is, just remember that all of this stuff is the normal process. I've gone through it. Thousands of other people have followed this same basically pattern of recovery. So you're not alone on that. Everyone's path is a little bit different. Maybe you'll end up doing it faster than I did, or maybe you'll end up doing it slower than I did. Either way, it still doesn't necessarily matter. It's part of that process. And you might get stuck along the way. There are people who get stuck, and you just have to keep pushing through it, keep working on it, keep making the strides to improve. And you will, annotate those improvements that you're making so you can remember the successes that you've had and take it slow. Don't rush it. Narcissistic relapses and these emotional flashbacks happen. They're not fun. They are an indicator that we still have more to work on, but it just means that it's stuff that we can work on. Doesn't mean we'll be stuck with it forever. So on that, I'm going to wrap this up, and I will chat with you on the next video. Take care.